guy, did you know that even in space, the ultimate enemy is still man?
I did know that.
Welcome back to Ty and That Guy.
You look like you're explosively decompressing, which is perfect for the movie we're talking about.
Exactly. That by the way, we're talking about Outland today, and I was doing my impression of the head exploding in the beginning. It was a pretty good head exploding in the beginning. The other ones,
it's not the best head explosion of all time because that's still Scanners, but it was a pretty good one.
But it's the other head explosions in the movie aren't as good as the first one.
Yeah,
the first one has that. It's like really satisfying in some way. Like it builds that pressure and then it has that like thing and the blood comes on the thing. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves, Ty. Today we're talking about what's interesting is. I think we're kind of doing like an unofficial series of influences of the Expanse. And we talked a little bit about Outland. Outland was made by the Ladd Company, which also made Blade Runner, which also made Alien. And I think that there is a spiritual cousin in Outland. And then in the third act of Outland is just a remake of High Noon, which I think, there's a lot of flaws there, and we will discuss and get into it as we get into the plot. But I really enjoyed this movie. And if we talk about the first impression of the movie, there was that period there when Alien came out where there was a lot of like Alien type movies. And
so many of them were so bad.
So bad. But guess what? We watched every goddamn one of them.
Every one of them. Yep.
And I didn't even know they were bad. I didn't even, I just knew I liked some a lot more than the other ones. But Peter Hyam originally wrote the script for this as a Western. But with the success of Alien and at 20th Century Fox, they were like, nobody is into Westerns right now. So he switched it and made it into space. This was in the HBO rotation. This was playing all the time. And when it was one of those things where you just see like bits and pieces of it late at night, like 2 a.m. And then you're like, what is this? And I'm going to watch it, whatever. But when I first saw the movie from beginning to end and I saw the opening credits and it has that Jerry Goldsmith? Jerry Goldsmith. Jerry Goldsmith, who was the composer for Alien, was also the composer for this. So when they start out and you hear and then the title appears in the vastness of space, then I'm in the Alien mode. I'm ready. Like I'm ready for some supernatural shit to go down. And it's kind of like in Harlem Nights. I've said this before, but when she goes she tries to get some orange juice and she says, I got my mouth all ready for orange juice and there's nothing but a swallow in the jug. And, I got my mouth all ready for Aliens and it wasn't Alien. And, but when I watched it, it's one of those movies that stuck with me and I watched it over and over. And every time it was on HBO, I would stop and watch it all the way through. What was your first impression of it?
Well, I mean, I had seen Outland before I saw Alien because I didn't get to see Alien until he had been out for quite some time. But like you said, it was on HBO all the time, and I would go down to my friend's house who lived down the street, and his parents would let him watch anything he wanted. So I would go hang out at his house and watch all the stuff on HBO that my parents wouldn't let me watch. And Outland was one of those movies. And so I saw it pretty shortly after it came out, so I was fairly young. And it was sci-fi. That's all it had to be for me to love it is sci-fi. I'd watched, like you said, we watched every single terrible Alien ripoff. Yeah, absolutely. And I watched them all because they were sci-fi. They had aliens and spaceships, and it just didn't matter. So
how many times did you and your buddy watch Porky's and Revenge of the Nerds? and because you had no restrictions over there.
There was another one that was out at the time. So I saw 10 at his house.
Oh yeah, the Bo Derek 10.
Yeah, and you mostly you just would like if you knew 10 was on, you would do something else until you knew the last 10 minutes were coming on because that's where she gets naked.
Yeah.
So I saw 10 a bunch of times, but or at least that last 10 minutes of 10.
10 came out around this time, by the way. And what's interesting is because the original script and the original title was Io. and everybody thought it was called 10.
Right.
And so they were like, wait a minute.
I'm about to say some stuff that's going to sound negative about Outland, but it's not, because I loved this movie. I watched this movie as a kid. I loved it. It's a very entertaining movie. Still to this day, it entertains me if I watch it. But when it came to creating The Expanse, whereas Alien was sort of like, The Expanse is trying to make Alien again, The Expanse was deliberately making the opposite of Outland, because as much as I love Outland, as much as I enjoy the movie and it's entertaining, it gets almost all of the details wrong. And so when we were making The Expanse, it's like we wanted to do the version of Outland where they actually pay attention to the rules of space that actually exist. So Outland is people on a mining colony in space. That's very Expanse, right? Like we have a lot of mining stuff in The Expanse. So for that part of it, and I loved the way things looked. They looked very lived in, the corridors looked dirty. I like all of that stuff. So that's
like
part
a
of it.
used car for future.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is. But of course, when we get to it, we could talk about like people's heads exploding and decompression and that kind of stuff. So that part was the part where we were deliberately tacking away from Outland. And I think Outland and movies like it are the reason when people see The Expanse, they're like, well, that person took off his helmet. Why didn't his head explode? So we were miseducated by movies like this.
Yeah.
For decades, so that when movies started coming out and TV shows started coming out that did it right, they seemed wrong because we had watched so many movies that did it wrong.
Yeah. And they got a lot of facts about Io wrong that you guys get right in The Expanse. And wasn't Jules Pierre Mao, wasn't his like secret base on Io?
It was. Yeah.
And I remember reading about this movie and reading that there was a lot of information that we got about Io that this movie completely ignored, that it happened in the late 70s. A lot of things that we learned about Jupiter's moon. This movie was like, fuck, man, we don't want to do all that volcanic shit and all that,
Yeah.
We're going to do this. So we listeners, we had we got about halfway through this podcast and we realized we weren't recording. So we're kind of retreading. So if I've already said this, I don't remember if I said it or not, but if I've already said it, but the Ladd Company made Alien and Blade Runner. And this movie is, in my mind, a spiritual cousin to those movies. And there's a lot of fan theories out there that Outland takes place in the same universe at the same time that Alien does. There is the company, the bad company in this is supposedly a rival company for the company that hired the Nostromo.
Weyland-Yutani?
Yes. There's some cool theories about there that this all takes place in the same universe. One of the things that I find really interesting, and the first time I saw this was in Alien. And Ty, I don't know, tell me, you might have seen this before before Alien, but the mundane and extraordinary settings is fascinating to me. And the first time I saw that is in Alien because I see myself in that. And it's these guys in space. And they're not like, holy fuck, we're in space. We're traveling. It's like they're bitching about their pension. They're bitching about, and it's just a blue collar working class people in these extraordinary settings in these extraordinary time. And this is how this starts off. So the atmosphere and the vibe really puts me into Alien.
Yeah.
I've
always said that my two favorite characters in Alien are Parker and Brett, because they're not spaceship captains. They're not like space commandos. They're not even scientists. They're like they look like a couple of guys who have at best a GED or a high school diploma, right? But they went to trade school and they learned how to like turn wrenches, and they do like that sort of custodial sort of work. They just happen to do it on a spaceship. Like either of those guys could easily be the building custodian in your building, right?
Yes.
Either of them could be that guy down there fixing the boiler and making sure that your heat works and stuff, right?
Right.
They just happen to be on a spaceship, and they have all of the same sort of attitudes as people we know. They're pissed off they don't get paid as much as everybody else. They're pissed off that people ask them to do work that they don't want to do.
Right.
They're acting like grumpy custodians on a spaceship.
Like you don't hear Shatner talking to Spock and being like, the boss is up my ass again.
No,
I got to make this quota. And,
you never hear some random red shirt in the corridor going, God damn it, why don't I get paid as much as those guys in the yellow shirts?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you never see that. And so Outland feels like a world that's occupied by a bunch of Parker and Bretts. They're just guys, they're miners, they got a shitty job, they get paid a lot to do it.
Outland works best for me in the beginning when you introduce the world and the station and I find all that interesting. And then slowly there's these stories of these guys going insane. And they're doing crazy things. You know, one guy feels like he's seeing spiders and spiders are all over his body.
Yeah.
And he's doing things that doesn't make sense. One guy puts himself in an airlock and he has this like real creepy look on his face. And so I'm in because now we have this mystery and they're doing these weird things. And then you meet Sean Connery, who is the new marshal that goes to this station. William O'Neill. Yeah. It's interesting to me with movie stars like Sean Connery, where there's a little known movie like this, which isn't even really built around, you know, like this incredible performance. And I think this is one of the best things Sean Connery, one of the best performances he's done. I mean, I think it's in the top 5 for me. And it reminds me of like Midnight Run with De Niro. I mean, he's De Niro, he was in Raging Bull. But if you look at Midnight Run, the work that he's doing, and it's funny, and it's so far away from his persona, so far away from who he is personally. I'm always impressed with those quiet performances. And I think Sean Connery's fantastic in this.
It's a very understated performance. You know, he's not chewing the scenery. He's definitely not playing James Bond. He's just playing a guy who's got a kind of a shitty job. It's costing him his family.
Mm-hmm.
He's dealing with that and stumbles onto a larger conspiracy, a larger mystery that he's trying to figure out. In classic Western storytelling, which, you know, as you said, this was really supposed to be a Western. In classic Western storytelling, he's also the honest man. He's the guy who stumbles across this mystery, and if he just ignores it, his job will be easier.
Yeah.
Because he's the honest man, he can't ignore it. He has to figure it out. And leads to all the complications later in the plot.
He's complicated because obviously this stubbornness has got him in trouble in the past.
Yeah.
And he's got his ass kicked all over the solar system into all these shitty stations because he is unable to compromise. And this is the sense that you get. And they do a good job of like not throwing out this crazy exposition about, well, you know, where he came from or why he's there. But through his behavior and through how people react towards him, you get that, oh, he has this stubbornness, this bullheadedness, that this is why in the position of why he's in.
Yeah, in many ways, Outland is the movie I didn't want to make when I made The Expanse, right? I wanted it to be more accurate. But when
you say accurate, do you mean more like scientifically accurate?
Yeah, just accurate
to like
in,
the rules
how the environment of space actually works for the people in it. That's what I'm talking about.
Because there's some things that Outland has that The Expanse does that it was inspired by that does well, like the working class blue collar mentality.
The working class stuff, definitely, and the sort of lived in feel of the stations. But I will say that the one of the things that in rewatching it, when I was a kid watching this, I didn't expect anything, so everything seemed exciting. Now rewatching it, when he figures out what's going on, when he figures out that there's these drugs that are being brought into the station to keep the workers working harder, and that these drugs, if you use them for too long, I think in the movie it's like if you use them for 10 months, you're going to go crazy. The reveal feels so small, just regular.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like that. I like that it wasn't like the alien dust of Io is infecting them with this whatever. I like that when he finally figures out, it's like, no, it's just the mining company. They're shitty. They want the guys to work harder. I think when he first gets there, like the administrator of the station brags that the productivity has gone up like a huge percentage since he took over. And then you realize later, like, oh, that's because they started pumping him full of these drugs and making him work harder and stuff. And now as an adult with, I hope, a more sophisticated sense of storytelling than I had as a kid, I remember as a kid being like, oh, it's just drugs. That didn't seem like that sci-fi to me. I actually like that the explanation isn't a sci-fi explanation. I like that now. I like that it's just this. No, it's just a shitty company pumping people full of drugs, and that's the answer.
My problem with that, the first 2 acts where these guys are having psychotic breaks and you don't know why, and he's investigating it. It has that very noir Blade Runner feel. And I just watched it recently as well. I'm into it. I'm really swept up. And when the guy's locked in with the girl and he has the knife and his partner comes in and kills him, and Connery's a little suspicious of like, why would that didn't need to happen.
You didn't need to kill him. Yeah.
So there's a suspense and mystery that is really pulling me in. First, I see this really interesting, used, textured world on this crazy planet Io that you don't. It's like the far reaches of your imagination that they're there working. You got this great mystery where these guys are just having these psychotic breaks, and there's some kind of conspiracy. You meet Peter Boyle in the cafeteria, and there's something menacing about him. He's very good in this, by the way.
Yeah, Peter Boyle's great.
So I am on the train. I am ready for this. But my problem is they dissipate it way too easy and way too soon, I think. Because it's almost like they want to, it's almost like the third act is a separate movie. That's when the clock starts. You got this guy coming. That's when it's almost, there's like a lot of influences of a lot of movies, and it's like, okay, this is our high noon moment.
Right.
And they have this, this is what I wish is, and maybe I'm jumping, ahead of too fast how we're doing this, but what I would have liked to seen is the mystery not being solved so easy and so soon. But early on, way early on, like somewhere in the second act, he intercepts that conversation that he intercepts, but he doesn't know who it is, but he intercepts, hey, we got to take this guy out. We need your best guys. And then it's coming. So that clock starts earlier, but now he has to solve the mystery and figure out what it is while these people are coming to kill him. And him solving that mystery will then identify the people that are coming to kill him, and that's his only choice. So then that clock and that pressure would be building up, and the mystery and suspense would be building up, because where it is now, it just dissipates. Like you're on board, you're all great. And then it's
I think you're right that what feels like 2 different movies. There's the investigation movie, which just sort of ends. And then there's I've figured it out. Now these guys are coming to kill me. And then we switch into high noon. And I think what you're describing is a good idea, because what it would do is it tie those 2 stories together. The ticking clock is not just on they're coming to kill me. It's also on how long I have to figure out the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a good idea. That probably would make it a better movie.
And what a cool reveal. The guy that's kind to him, that they start to have a bonding moment, basically his really only friend on the station, and that he realizes he's taking money. They just kind of throw that away, that he's taking money. They just throw away the whole plot that, what Peter Boyle is like, making money by selling the drugs, and then making money because these guys are so hopped up. They're working so hard. And then when they go psychotic, they just kill him. They just take him off the thing. And then, him investigating, why can't we get any, like, as soon as the body's dead, they're gone, the bodies are gone, and he's like going in the thing. And then there's that scene where he goes in the ship where they're trying to ship the body out, and he takes the blood from the guy.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. That's great stuff. Why do we dissipate it? Bring it all the way to the end. And then especially when you have that clock ticking, that somebody's coming to kill him, and somebody ordered that, and he has no idea who it is.
And he has no idea who did it. Yeah, all of that would be much better. And let's be honest, the film came out to very mixed reviews, and I think a lot of the reason for that is the stuff you're talking about. The story feels a little undercooked. The things you're talking about, those sorts of plot changes and story changes would have really dramatically helped improve the story. And thinking back through, looking through his list of movies, I feel like a lot of them are like that. I don't think, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't think Peter Hyams' focus, it seems to me, in having seen his movies, has ever been the story. I think he's a shooter. I think he's a cinematographer. I think he likes pointing cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this movie does suffer from that somebody sitting and taking a few months and really digging through this story and digging through the script could have made this a much better movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think an indication of him not being a storyteller is how he underutilizes the family. So you have this wife and this son, And it's almost like he's like, let me just get them out of the way. Like, let me just get them out of the way. Where they could have been used to enhance the story. They could have been used to make Sean Connery vulnerable, or just don't have him at all. And he'd be like the stranger with no name, you know, the man with no name. But if you are going to bring them on, have that be a thing that makes the hero vulnerable, right? So, you know, now his family's in danger. And so, and that adds pressure to him to compromise, because the whole thing is they're trying to pressure him to compromise. And it's the thing in High Noon of, there are so many moments where he could have gotten out, where Peter Boyle offers him the money, where his wife has the ticket to get him off so he could just run away from the whole thing, and also having everybody abandon him. And then in High Noon, everybody abandons him except all the misfits, all the people that you didn't think you could count on, the town drunk and everything. And they're the ones that ended up having his back. And the doctor in this, who was fantastic and had a really great part.
Oh, is it the Frances Sternhagen character?
Yes.
Yeah. She's great.
And I love that. Like, it's so out of nowhere where she's just being rude to him and she's being grumpy. And he's like, I need this report and I need it today, or I'm going to kick your nasty ass all over this room. And you could tell she's not taking it seriously. And it just kind of makes a little twinkle in her eye. Like, she appreciated it. It was funny to her.
Yeah.
And that was like the beginning of their friendship.
Well, you get the sense that she likes it when people give as good as they get.
Yeah.
Like, she's constantly fucking with everybody, and when somebody like pushes back, she kind of likes that.
Yeah. That relationship really worked. It was one of the ones that really worked in the movie, because their bonding and their building of friendship was how hard they just made fun of each other and just ripped each other down. And it's like Midnight Run. It's like Come Hell or High Water with Jeff Bridges and his partner.
Yeah.
And then in the end, she was the only one that had his back. She was the only one that was there for him.
And give some credit to the actors there, because yes, I agree that is the relationship that really works. And I think a big part of that is two fantastic actors with enormous chemistry. She's been great in a million things. You look at her IMDb page, it's like 50 pages long. And she's got that, like you said, she's got that twinkle in her eye. There's just something very charming about her.
Right.
And the two of them are good together. So, you know, I mean, you can take, I was just talking about Running Scared. You can take kind of a weak story, and if you put two characters in it that have enormous chemistry, you make the story seem great. Like just by them. Yeah.
Like Lethal Weapon. We're talking Riggs. You could put them in any situation, and their chemistry, you would watch them doing anything. But, you know, again, I go back to the family. I thought the wife was interesting, and I wanted her to have more of, they didn't serve any purpose. They didn't serve any reason. And so why were they there? And
from a writer's perspective, that's what you look for in rewrites. That's what you look for when you're redrafting, right? Mm-hmm. Is you go through a script or a book or whatever, and you say, does this scene serve the larger purpose? What is this scene accomplishing for me that I need in this story? And especially in a movie, because you've only got like 90 minutes or 100 minutes to tell the story. You can't fuck around. You can't waste scenes.
Yeah.
So that's what makes on rewatch with, again, what I hope is a more sophisticated understanding of storytelling now. I agree with what you're saying, that there's a bunch of scenes where I'm like, why did they leave this in? Either make this important or get rid of it.
Right.
And one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got on screenwriting was from a director who said, we were going through the script and he said, I don't think we need this scene. And he said, I think the first thing the editor's going to do is cut this scene. We start talking about it. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. And he's like, never put a scene in your script that an editor's going to cut, because the editors are ruthless. They don't give a fuck. Right. Yeah. If it doesn't do something for the story they're cutting together, they don't care how much you loved that scene. Right. They don't care how much sweat you put into that scene. They don't care how funny you thought that scene was. They just get rid of it. Right.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of scenes in this movie where, like, those sorts of scenes where, like, you're wondering why the editor didn't just cut it.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because if you look at it from that perspective, if you take the wife and son out, it doesn't change anything in the movie. It doesn't change anything. And so even if it's there to get, like, you know, a bit of understanding of who he is or where he's coming from, you don't need that. I feel like it could have been a tool, even if they were there. It made him more vulnerable. He now had to take care of his family. And then there could have been a reversal where you think they're going to get the family, but he's found a way to get them out. And then when they're on the way out, there's that moment of like, come with me. You can come with me. You can leave this fucking station. Fuck them. Like, let's go. And then it's a stronger decision for him to say, no, this is what I'm staying, because the reality is I need to know what kind of a man I am. Am I the kind of guy that is going to run? Am I the kind of guy that's going to compromise? Who am I? And this is why I'm staying. And lets them go. That is a stronger character moment that serves a purpose, because when she does say, hey, I have an extra ticket, it was kind of like an afterthought. We have 3 tickets, you could leave. And she's so outside of the story and outside of the people that we know and care about. It's not a real temptation for him. It doesn't feel like that. Yeah,
it feels perfunctory rather than like a major character moment. Honestly, if I was doing the remake of Outland, like if somebody came to me and said, we'll pay you a bunch of money to write a script for a modern take on Outland, the first thing I would do is I would get rid of the family and I would shift the romantic tension onto the Frances Sternhagen character.
Yep. That's exactly.
I would have her be the one that he's worried about protecting, because she's there. She's part of it. She's not like, the wife character is sort of this separate outside thing, as you pointed out. The Frances Sternhagen character is in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And by her helping him, she puts herself in danger.
Right.
And that's a nice motivation for him.
Right.
And if there's a bit of a romantic thing between them, or you sense that there could be a romantic thing between them that he's trying to protect.
Yeah.
I think that would be a much more interesting way to do it.
Yeah.
But, so far nobody has offered me money to make that movie yet.
And one of the first things I would do is I would have that same, what you're talking about, but I would have really early on him intercepting that conversation where they're like, bring your best guys. We got to kill this guy.
Yeah.
And you could even bring that on, as the investigation is beginning. So, maybe he somehow stumbled upon something that made him dangerous. Right. And so now through his whole investigation, there's this ticking clock of these guys are going to kill him. And the only way he can identify those guys is he has to solve the mystery. He's got to figure it out. And I would really complicate the mystery and have a lot of red herrings. And his buddy, being a part of the whole thing at the end, I would bury that and hide that as much as possible. And you would have to fully earn finding that out as they get down to the wire.
I think that's a great idea. And I think what you should do is you should find somebody who's willing to finance our remake of Outland.
I think it's fertile for a remake. And I think it would be a good miniseries.
Yeah, I think it would be fun. Since we're talking about things we would change, obviously, if you're listening to this, you're probably familiar with The Expanse. People do not explode in space. Right. That is not a real thing. Yes, you will die, but you die gasping for air. You don't explode.
Are you saying Total Recall is not accurate? How dare you?
Well, I think Total Recall won the Academy Award for most scientifically accurate movie ever made.
and Arnold Schwarzenegger won the award for greatest actor who ever acted.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, obviously, having said all of that, so, there's definitely some plot stuff here that feels very undercooked. There's some science stuff that's just complete bullshit. Having said all of that, though, the thing that makes this movie rewatchable to me, the thing that makes this movie work, is all the stuff we started out talking about. I loved the understatedness of the performances. Nobody's chewing the scenery here. Nobody's acting like they're in a sci-fi movie, right? Because sometimes with sci-fi movies, you'll see actors decide that sci-fi has to be big, and nobody's doing that. It's great performances. You mentioned Peter Boyle. He's
especially
fantastic.
Peter Boyle, yeah.
Love Frances Sternhagen. I think she's great in this. As you said, Sean Connery does some of his most subtle, understated performance I think I've ever seen him do in this. It's a top performance from him. Everybody's great, and the set design is great. It feels like Alien. It feels the lived-in corridors. They're dirty. Miners have walked through here with dirty boots on, and it has that sort of feel to it, and it feels mostly cramped and claustrophobic, which it should feel. All of that stuff is really good. So there's still a lot of stuff in it, and I think you're right that the ticking clock should have started much sooner, and I think it should be much more tied to the investigation. But the fear that these guys are going to come kill him does feel legitimate. There is a lot of tension in that third act.
They solve the mystery, then they dissipate all the suspense, they dissipate all the tension, and then they say, okay, now these guys are going to kill you, and then the station is just waiting for those guys to get there.
Yeah.
Right. And he's playing, racquetball. She comes in. She's like, do you want to go get something do you want to go get drunk? He's like, yeah, let's go get drunk. So there's he's doing recreational activities. How much more can you dissipate the tension than that? It's like, okay, I solved everything. Let's just wait till these guys come and see who's going to kill who.
When we were talking about Beyond Thunderdome, when we were talking about Fury Road and we talked about Beyond Thunderdome a little bit, I did mention that once you've dissipated tension, it is so hard to get it back. If you let the air out of the tire, it is a lot more effort to pump air back into the tire once you've let it out. And that is the problem.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
You talk about Peter Boyle. I love the scenes, and I love that he's playing golf. By the way, talk about a look into the future. Did those exist then? Or was that like a window into what's going to be? Where
I don't know. I mean, clearly it is a thing we have now.
I don't think they exist then.
Yeah.
In that way.
I don't know when those first started showing up. Or maybe they had just started developing the very first ones and somebody on the movie read about it and was like, oh, they would have this.
A great scene to show a power dynamic is to have a guy playing golf and having a conversation, and Connery's there and he's like, I'm going to bust your ass. And he's still doing his golf swing and checking it out. And he's like, what do you need? More money? What's going on? Like you're playing the big time. And so there's those moments of him being so unconcerned about Sean Connery. And there's not even, he doesn't get emotionally involved, right?
Yeah.
Until Sean Connery says that he destroyed one of the shipments of drugs. Then you see him stop playing golf and Sean Connery has attention. He's still playing poker. He's still not showing him anything, but that he's gotten to him, that there's something that he has on him. And Peter Boyle did a fantastic job. And that's a way that's how you do that scene. You do that scene where Peter Boyle's menacing and they're staring each other down and they're at the desk and like, I'm going to get you, going back and forth. No, the way you do it is he's completely non-bothered. He's doing something. He's playing a video game. He's playing golf. He's doing something and he barely notices that guy's there. And, and so that to me is how you pull that scene off.
Yeah. And again, this movie just needed another draft.
Yeah.
Needed another draft.
They should have hired us, Ty. I think it's fertile for a remake. We should remake it. We should just fucking write it and just make it and not ask anybody for the rights or anything like that. And just
do it.
Just deal with we'll call it like Farland.
Spaceland.
Spaceland. Yeah. And it's Steven Spiel, not William O'Neill. We do all this stuff. I know Joseph's like, get on the fucking task. It's fucking 6:30. My family's waiting at dinner, and I got these jackoffs wanting to talk about their routines in life. Go fuck yourselves.
You know what? Just if you want to, ball gag talk, whatever. You guys always it always is good.
Well, is there any other stuff we wanted to cover on Outland before we get up?
Yes.
Go ahead. Let's do that.
I have a policy. I don't ever criticize somebody's performance, especially kids' performances. There was an emotional moment where Sean Connery was fantastic when he's talking to his family. Sometimes it is really tricky when you cast children.
Oh yeah, it is so hard to cast kids.
Or if you have a day player that you haven't put much thought in or you haven't put much casting in. And kids have the potential to be fantastic. And I think you have to know how to direct them. You have to I think Spielberg is very good at directing kids. And maybe Peter Hyams is not that. Because the moment was completely missed and it was the emotional linchpin within the movie. And I thought Connery was great. And I bet Connery watched that and was like, God damn it, that could have been a phenomenal scene. But it's motivating our top 5 today. So tell us what the top 5 is, Joseph. Did you feel the same way, by the way, in that moment?
Yeah.
And you're like, Jesus Christ, just come on.
Well, our top 5 is top kid performances.
Henry Thomas, E.T., baby.
Yeah, that one, that's a pretty good one.
Can I just say, so I'm obsessed with the Twilight Zone and the twist ending, and I'm here for it. I'm a sucker for it. I love horror movies. Ghost horror is the one that scares me the most.
Yeah.
One of the greatest rewarding moments of film watching and going to the theater to see a film for me was going to see The Sixth Sense for the first time. I had no idea. I had no idea there was a twist. I had zero expectation. It was like, oh, a horror movie, it's a ghost. Okay, I'll go see it. And Haley Joel Osment,
he was a beast in that.
He was so good. I was so
good.
I was so emotionally invested in that little boy's character, and he broke my heart when he tried to tell the kid the joke when they were at the party, and he tried to tell him a joke or was a magic trick or something like that, and the kid was like, "That's not funny." There might have been dust in the theater at that point. Like, if you want to break my heart, be mean to a kid. And I had a single mother. I lived with her, and their relationship and what she was like, the struggles that she had to raise this kid that was going through something that she didn't understand. She didn't know how to help him. And the thing that was terrifying him was like in my strike zone of most terrifying things of all time. Like, how many times did you go up at night and pee when you were a kid? And I don't know if you were a ghost person, but I would go pee and I'd like, imagine like a ghost being there or whatever. And it was fucking terrifying to me. So that poor boy's life in that movie was like in the strike zone of things that I fear most. And so I was on the ride for that whole thing.
The performance was as good as the role.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a great movie. It's a great role. And the performance was as good as the part, which that's what you want. That's what you're looking for. I am a huge fan of this movie and this performance. Haley Stanfield in the remake of True Grit, I thought she was amazing as the aggressive, threatening everybody with her lawyer little girl.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was awesome in that movie. Yeah. I know she did some Marvel stuff after that I wasn't super in love with, but in that movie, I think she's incredibly good.
I used to have this acting teacher that told me you can play below your intelligence, but it's really hard to play above your intelligence as an actor.
Yeah, no shit.
and I was like, well, God damn it. That really limits me. But Haley in True Grit was so smart and intelligent, and you believed that she was the smartest person in the room as, however old she was at that time, like 13 or 14.
And her performance did something that's hard to do with it. You and I have talked about before, which is it's easy to play a thing. It is less easy to play somebody pretending to be that thing and hiding something else, where there's like those layers to it.
Yeah.
She's playing tough because she's terrified. And both layers come through.
Mm-hmm.
That she's putting on this super tough front, and she's being super aggressive and in everybody's face because she's scared she's not going to be able to do the thing.
Yeah.
That she's trying to find the guy who murdered her father, and she's not going to be able to do it, and nobody's going to help her.
Right.
And both of those layers come through in her performance, and that is what I really appreciate about that.
Yeah.
Talk about a stunning child performance that launched an amazing career. Christian Bale in Empire of the Sun.
Oh yeah,
might be the top of those lists.
This is a fun category, and I'm glad this is going to be great. But this is going to be hard. I didn't really you don't think about this is a stacked thing because Natalie Portman in The Professional.
She's great in The Professional. Yeah, and launched her career. Obviously, River Phoenix in Stand By Me is amazing. Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver is heartbreaking, and like you're terrified for her the whole time she's in it. She's great. Obviously, it launched a huge career for her. I would say that it's not one of the best movies ever, but obviously Kick-Ass launched Chloe Grace Moretz's career. I thought she was fantastic as Hit Girl, and has gone on to have a pretty successful career since then.
Dude, every time in Kramer versus Kramer, when Justin Henry is talking to Dustin Hoffman, and Dustin Hoffman's on his knees, and he's telling him that he's going to leave him, and the kid breaks down, and it's so honest and so authentic. Every time I see that scene, Pollen shows up somewhere, up in the house. Somebody leaves the window open every time that happens, and it gets in my eye. Irritates me.
And the kid, you've got it on the list here. I didn't see it at first. The kid who plays in Jojo Rabbit.
Oh yeah,
what a amazing performance that is,
dude. Leo in Finding Gilbert Grape.
Yeah, and launched his astonishing career.
And to have one of the great careers in Hollywood history, I don't know that he's topped that performance since then. That's how great he was in that moment.
He was pretty great in that moment. Joseph just put down, scroll down a little bit. What's her name? Oh, Madeline McGraw from Black Phone. Another young actress delivering maybe my favorite performance in the entire movie. She's great in that. She's fantastic. And I would put, it's not a movie, but I actually got to see this in person. So that's why it stuck with me so much. The first couple scenes I saw them shoot.
Bella Ramsey?
Not with Bella Ramsey, but with, her name just flew out of my head. She's the one who plays Arya. Shit, how I just had her name in my head, and then
Maisie Williams.
Maisie Williams, thank you. The first time I saw Maisie Williams performing, and I was actually on set when they were shooting these scenes, I have never seen a more natural actor than Maisie Williams. She was awesome and utterly natural, and she was tiny. She was like this little kid. What was she, like 11 when she was doing that? It blew me away. Yeah, I still think Maisie Williams is one of the most gifted natural actors I've ever seen.
What about Tatum O'Neal in Paper Moon? She was extraordinary in that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time, so I don't have a strong memory of it. Abigail Breslin in Little Miss Sunshine, I thought she was great. I also thought she was great, although she's more of a teenager in it, in Zombieland. So, I mean, this, like you said, this is a stacked
I don't
list.
even know how to... I mean, this is almost like we should do a part 2 with this list so I can like marinate it and think about it. And maybe we can divide it in somehow, Best kid.
How about girls and boys?
We don't do that.
That way you get 5 and 5.
We don't do that anymore, Joseph.
Okay, all right.
That's actually a good idea. Do you want to do that?
I don't care. I'm fine with whatever.
I need you to care.
But I'm physically incapable of caring about things.
Yeah, maybe that's a way we could do it. So Henry Thomas, Haley Joel Osment, Christian Bale.
I'd put Leo up there.
I would put Leo up there.
Yeah. And of the guys who are left, I might stick River Phoenix up there because his performance in Stand By Me created River Phoenix. Like everybody watched that and went, "Oh my God, we have to put this guy in everything from now on." Yeah.
There is certain moments like Haley Joel Osment or River Phoenix in Stand By Me where someone is so honest and it's so authentic and they just bare their soul that when you watch it, like all idea of performance and acting in a story is gone. Somebody's truly going through something in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's undeniable. And it's rare, but every now and then you get a moment like Leo and Gilbert Grape or River Phoenix where it's undeniable. And there are people that have had moments or performances like that, and then their whole career is living off the momentum of that one performance.
Yeah. Yeah, and the people we've picked went on to have great career. Haley Joel Osment, when he got older and stopped being cute, had to struggle a little bit. But, obviously Christian Bale and Leonardo DiCaprio, and River Phoenix, didn't struggle to find work.
So sad. Like I really would love to see what River Phoenix could have accomplished in his work.
Yeah. Yeah. He's one of those ones that I really, him and, the guy who played the Joker.
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. Yeah. I'm really bummed we won't get more Heath Ledger because I thought he was turning into something very special.
Yeah. And that also is really impresses me is, he started off, he was this handsome kind of heartthrob guy and he played these roles, but he started to really break through something within himself. And Brokeback Mountain and the Joker, there's just there was another level inside of him and where he was really connecting to these deeply authentic, honest, vulnerable performances.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a real bummer. We won't get more of that. Yeah. So for me, I would throw Maisie Williams up into the top list there. I was so impressed by her.
Yeah. Jodie Foster.
Jodie, it's hard to ignore how great Jodie Foster is.
Yeah. Natalie Portman for sure.
Yeah. Well, he's got Natalie Portman up there. So we've got Haley Stanfield, Natalie Portman, Jodie Foster, Maisie Williams. Who would you put as number 5?
Let's throw in Madeline McGraw because it's new and it's fresh and it's something we just saw.
I really liked her in that movie. I thought she was great, and I'm interested to see what other stuff she's going to do. I mean, like, is that going to launch a career for her?
And now I would argue Tatum O'Neal, but since you haven't seen it in a while, then
I haven't.
Okay, and I think probably Justin Henry. I think he has a scene in that movie that breaks my heart beyond anything else on here, but it's really that one scene,
It's that one scene.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, listeners. Thank you to my good friend Ty and my good friend Joseph. Please ring that little bell. Ty gets his wing and Joseph gets horns. And smash that subscribe button. Give us some love because we love you.
And make sure that Joseph's children can eat real food by liking and subscribing and doing all of the things.
Because is he eating? Are they eating fake food now?
Well, shoes.
All right,
they have to eat shoes.
The old shoe. Is that a thing? Did people used to eat shoes?
It was an old timey thing where like they would show hobos putting a leather boot in a pot and start like making boot soup. I don't think it ever actually happened. But yeah.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.